Welcome to the Dairy Raid. Presented with over 20 years of coaching experience, the Dairy Raid provides commentary and analysis of the schemes, the players, and the coaches who create Wisconsin football's new identity. Now here's your host, Ryan Anderson.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Dairy Raid, and as the title of the video shows, it's finally time to start taking a look at the potential candidates for the Wisconsin offensive coordinator job. A lot of names have been thrown out there, so we're going to take a look at some of the popular candidates that have been put forth by the Badger fandom, a couple outside of the box candidates, and we're going to break it down a little bit. So here we go. First one we're going to go through, we're just going to get the obvious one out of the way, and that's Gino Guidugli. Obviously, the big thing with Gino Guidugli is his relationship and his connection to Luke Fickell. With the hiring of Phil Longo, Fickell went outside of the box, went outside of his comfort zone. That ended up not working because you could obviously see there was a problem with the working relationship between the two of them. So for me, it's easy to say, let's bring in a guy that he's comfortable with, guy that he knows, a guy that has already accepted a job in Madison at one point, and bring a sense of normalcy to Luke Fickell's working relationship with his offensive coordinator. Now, that's not to say that based on Gino's credentials that he wouldn't be a good candidate. If you look back the last 2 years of what he's done at Notre Dame, and you get such the dichotomy between the two different quarterbacks that he's had to work with. Last season with Sam Hartman, developing him in it as a transfer coming in, having one of the best passer ratings in school history for a single season, pretty good completion percentage, really saw them push the ball downfield as one of the better passing seasons in Notre Dame history. And then this season, you get Riley Leonard, again, coming in as a transfer. And you see a different approach because, at this point in the season, Leonard only has 14 passing touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. But he has close to 700 yards rushing and 13 touchdowns. So the ability to work with not only a pass-first prototypical quarterback to now work with a mobile quarterback who really makes his game in the run game, that's something that I like to see. Obviously, when you go back to his time at Cincinnati, he helped develop quarterbacks there. Desmond Ridder, 2-time American Conference Offensive Player of the Year, and developed a really solid relationship with him, and the production on the field was very high. Obviously, a lot of people are going to put a lot of that credit on to Mike Denbrook, but the ability to work with and develop quarterbacks is what Wisconsin needs. I think we have a pretty solid coaching staff all around. We have a guy who can come in and get that relationship and build whatever type of quarterback the Badgers end up having is going to be huge going forward. So yes, he is the safe candidate, but he has the experience and he has the relationship that is going to potentially make this work. So I wouldn't be against it. Is it? Yeah, safe choice, boring choice, yes, but a solid one nonetheless. All right, so let's start getting into some of the names that the fan base has been calling for I've made a little edit to this list and took a couple names out. But the first one that we're seeing a lot, obviously, is Brian Hartline, the co-offensive coordinator and wide receiver coach at Ohio State. You look at him and you're seeing an elite developer of wide receivers, an elite recruiter of wide receivers, and which is something Wisconsin has not had. We get flashes at receiver, but we don't develop. I think when Wisconsin has a really good receiver, they come in with talent and they look really good in comparison to the rest of the crap that we usually have in our receiving core. So this is a guy who's not only going to be able to recruit high-level talent, but he would be able to develop him, which is what we need. Now, obviously, the knock on him is going to be, even though he was listed as the offensive coordinator last season, even though he's listed as the co-offensive coordinator this year, he was not a play caller. Ryan Day called plays for years with Ohio State, and this year Chip Kelly is. Now, he is going to learn a lot from them, especially in the run game. They're coming from the New Hampshire Mafia section of the power spread offense, but don't know if the play calling experience he has is where it needs to be. Another really big thing that we need to see here, it is going to take a lot to convince an Ohio State born and bred, has not left the state of Ohio except for his NFL career, to get him to leave. And then also, I worry that if we convince him to leave, that he's not the first guy called when the Buckeyes come looking for a new head coach. So, could he be a great guy short term? Absolutely. Is he the long-term answer? Probably not, because he's going to be getting a head coaching job here sooner rather than later, or going on to the NFL. So, but we'll see. He's a good candidate. Next up, this is a very intriguing choice. Tom Herman, former head coach at Florida Atlantic, former head coach at Texas, Houston, and offensive coordinator for one of the best 3-year stretches offensively in Ohio State history back in the early 2010s. What I like about Tom Herman, one, Luke Fickell likes bringing in guys who have coaching, a lot of experience, head coaching experience in particular. That's what he's bringing here. There's connection. Obviously, they were both at Ohio State at the same time. That's huge. And I can hear the groans amongst the fan base now, because they're looking at that time at Texas and thinking how much he failed at Texas. Do we know, or does the Wisconsin fan base know, how much of a dumpster fire Charlie Strong left him at Texas? And more importantly, how terrible the Texas offense was before Tom Herman came in. Just a couple things that we want to look in here. If we look at the 3 years prior to Tom Herman coming to Texas, Texas was 109th, 84th, and 46th in scoring in the country. In the 4 years under Tom Herman, Texas went to 31st, 53rd, 47th, 17th, and 7th in scoring. Yardage output the 3 previous years under multiple offensive coordinators under Charlie Strong: 337 yards, 370 yards, 492 yards. Under Tom Herman, 398, 412, 466, 475. He turned the Texas offense around. And that's all I care about. I don't care how good he is as a head coach. I care that he can turn offenses around. And he did that. And then when you look at what he did at Ohio State and what he did at Houston and what he did at Iowa State to get the Ohio State job as an offensive coordinator. Again, we're looking at Tom Herman, the offensive coordinator, not Tom Herman, the head coach. He is a solid candidate who can build solid running attacks and use dual threat quarterbacks to create balance. And you look at the college quarterbacks that he developed at Ohio State. Again, talk about college quarterbacks and the output that those quarterbacks put up. That's what gets me excited. Okay? He has a lot of experience. And he has deep roots recruiting in Texas. To me, Tom Herman is the no-brainer candidate because it gives Luke Fickell his comfort. It gives proven results on the football field. And he's a solid, high-level recruiter. That's when I don't care what happened at Florida Atlantic. I don't care what happened at Texas as him as a head coach. I want a good offensive coordinator. And I think he's looking for a chance to get back to basics with his game. And I think Wisconsin would be a great place to do that. So that's Tom Herman. Next up, Mike Denbrook. Okay. I've only put the last 15 years of his coaching career here on this chart, but he has experience going back to the mid-'80s, success at all levels. Obviously, the last couple years developing quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels. He's part of the success of Desmond Ridder. And now you add on to that Riley Leonard this as well. He's one of the best offensive coordinators, play designers, play callers in college football. And you look just how ridiculously good his offense was at LSU, and the huge yards and the turnaround that LSU had under him, from 91st in the country in total offense in 2021 to first in a record-setting season in 2023. It's outstanding. That's why Notre Dame put down the big bucks to get him in there, and that's why he is the highest paid offensive coordinator in college football, which is exactly why the Badgers will not be getting him. There's no chance. For multiple reasons. One, he's too expensive. Two, I think he is, dare I say, too old to be thinking of as a longer-term candidate. I think the Badgers need to find a younger guy to take this job that the players can grow with, but more importantly, can relate to the kids a little bit better. So I'm going to put Mike Denbrook in that pipe dream kind of category. Similarly to that, I'm going to add Andy Kotelnicki to that list for two reasons. One, it's going to take a lot of money to get him out of Penn State. He has Wisconsin ties, played at River Falls, coach at River Falls, coach at Whitewater, went with Lance Leipold to Buffalo and to Kansas. He has some of those qualities that Badger fans look for. But it's going to take a lot of money to get him out. But more importantly, I think he's going to get a head coaching job sooner rather than later. I've seen his name mentioned for the North Carolina job. Um, he is an up and comer, and it would be nice to have a head coaching an offensive coordinator who's going to stick around for a couple years. I think if we gave him a blank check and got him to come in for one, he'd be gone in a year because he'd get a head coaching job. So, in terms of scheme, I love his approach to the power spread. He brings explosiveness to the power spread. It is not just banging against the wall. It's not only can he build an offense that is really efficient in the run game, but he builds explosive plays. And building off an explosive run game, you have an efficient passing game. That's the combination that I like seeing. So I love his approach. Unfortunately, due to him being a hot commodity in the coaching world, I don't think the Badgers could, one, afford him, and two, expect to keep him for more than a year. So that's what I'm thinking. Let's move it on. Next candidate here is a very popular one amongst the Badger fans because he fills the number one criteria for a potential Wisconsin coach, and that is him being an alumni, and that is Jason Eck, the current head coach at Idaho. Now, with him, obviously, he is a run-first, power run game type of head coach, play caller. Obviously, coming from an offensive line coaching background, that's what you would expect. During his time at South Dakota State, he built one of the best rushing attacks in college football. Went to the deep in the playoffs every year that he was there. Took over and rebuilt the Idaho program quickly and brought a real big jump in their production in a very short period of time. Adding 10 points a game to the offense in one season is a big deal. What concerns me about him as a candidate is the simple fact that, one, he's a head coach. And yes, Wisconsin could easily pay his buyout and triple his salary. But he's a head coach. Is he going to be satisfied for sitting and being an offensive coordinator for a while? I don't know. Maybe. But if I were him, I'd maybe hang out at Idaho, finish that job, and then parlay that into an FBS head coaching job instead of an FBS coordinator job. Also, another key thing for me as well is I don't want to lose AJ Blazik. And I think we need a head coach who has a quarterback background more than an offensive line background. But we'll see. Speaking of quarterback backgrounds, next one up, another popular name with the fan base is Ben Arbuckle, the offensive coordinator at Washington State. Now, the problem with Arbuckle, and I call it a problem, it's not. If you hate the air raid brought in by Phil Longo, then Arbuckle is quote-unquote even worse. Arbuckle is we're going to spread and shred and throw the ball all over the field type of air raid coach. And he's had success. I mean, he's developed, obviously, Cam Ward, but at Western Kentucky had Austin Reed and Brady Zappi. NCAA's all-time leading passer. And here is his offensive coordinator and quarterback coach. And so for Wisconsin fans, I find it curious that so many people are calling for him to be the offensive coordinator when he does exactly the opposite of the Wisconsin way. So, um, he would be a fantastic candidate. Take what was started by Phil Longo and take it to another extreme, but there wouldn't be a huge amount of change in terms of the passing schemes, etc. Roster makeup would start having to be a little different because he's looking to run more 10 personnel, more tempo, more spread out. But it could be possible. The young guy, he's a guy I think he obviously needs a few more years to develop before he starts getting into head coaching discussions. But he's going to be a hot commodity this offseason. I've already seen his name mentioned for the Oklahoma offensive coordinator job. That sounds like a very typical fit. Obviously, Oklahoma, long-time air raid team, and Arbuckle could bring back that air raid system that Oklahoma did so successful for all those years. But coming from Washington State, obviously Wisconsin would be able to afford him. And who knows? Throw the right amount of money at a guy like him, might be able to get him. So we'll see. Next candidate, again, another one that the fans have been calling for, is Brennan Marion, the offense coordinator at UNLV, or at LSU, the creator of the vaunted go-go offense. There are some very intriguing things to see about his scheme. His scheme is a weird combination of flexbone, wing tee, power spread, using weird backfield alignments, different personnel packages to create a dynamic offense. And Badger fans get super excited anytime they see 22 personnel out there. And he runs a lot of it. There are some concerns I have about him being embraced by the fan base. He's a lot more outgoing, a lot more, in your face type of offensive coordinator. And he is going to be a coach who is going to go big or go home. I love that mentality. I don't know how well that's going to gel with Luke Fickell. Luke Fickell's probably going to love we're going to run the ball a lot type of thing. But, he's a wide receiver coach. He developed Jordan Addison during his time when he was at Pittsburgh. He is going to be a guy who wants to still throw the ball. But it's that running game that the Badger fans see and the Badger fans get excited about. But I question whether the go-go offense could work in a situation where defenses can excuse me, where his offense can work in a situation where the defense can match up to us physically. I think part of the reason why the go-go offense works at UNLV is his offense is built matchup-wise better than most of the defenses in the Mountain West. And you see it when he plays against the better teams, it doesn't work as well. So, an intriguing candidate. I don't think he's the right fit. I think I'd like to see him get a P4 job before I think he'd be a good candidate for the Badgers. All right. So moving on, the next one that I'm going to bring up here is a tangent off of a very popular choice by Badger fans. And the popular choice by Badger fans is Indiana co-offensive coordinator Mike Shanahan. He's getting a lot of the credit for the emergence of the Indiana offense. But a lot of credit is also due to the co-offensive coordinator and quarterback coach, Tino Sinceri. He is the guy who developed the quarterbacks that made Kurt Szigeti's offense work so well. I mean, you look at from Jordan McLeod and Todd Santillo, Cole Johnson, the quarterbacks that he had, and he turned into really solid both FCS and Sun Belt quarterbacks in a short period of time is what really intrigues me about him. He can develop quarterbacks, and that's what we have had problems with here at Wisconsin. Obviously, he has the connections. He's been a part of this system, so he's learned from Szigeti. He's worked with Shanahan. They've built a program, and they've built an offense. He might be ready for the next step to become his own coordinator and run his own offense. So I would be really intrigued. Shanahan gets the credit, but I think Sinceri has been doing a lot of the solid work. So he's a name that I keep my eye out on. Next up, another young up-and-comer who is really developing solid offenses, and that is Cade Bell, currently the offensive coordinator at Pitt. Another name that I've seen come up as a potential candidate for the Oklahoma offensive coordinator job. And he's another guy who developed his offense and really built explosive offenses at the FCS level. And this season got his first chance to be a coordinator at the FBS level. And is really turning around Pittsburgh's offense fast. I mean, if you look at Pittsburgh, in 2023, their offense ranked 116th in the nation in scoring, and so far this year, they're up to 34th, adding almost 100 yards of total offense to the game. He's built high-level passing offenses at the FCS level, at the Division II level, and his offense is dynamic. It is explosive. And he develops quarterbacks. That's what I like seeing. We need a coach who can develop a quarterback. And I really like watching his offense. He's young, and he is a type of coach who can also develop as a coach within the structure at Wisconsin. So, another intriguing name to be looking for. And then finally, the last one that we're going to look at is a name that I've heard a lot in the last few days. And that's Joe Craddock, the offensive coordinator at Tulane. And just all of a sudden, a lot of people have been talking about him. So I don't know if people know things that I don't know. But he has emerged as one of the fan favorites. And obviously, with his time at Troy, they were able to, his offense was really solid. Actually, behind quarterback John Summerall, they were one of the top passing teams in the Sun Belt. Were able to get the Troy offense to help lead the team to being ranked in the top 25 for the first time in program history. And so I'm curious about that. What I like about Craddock's background is he comes from the Clemson, Dabo Sweeney, Chad Morris branch of power spread. Okay, these are the type of offenses that developed guys like Taj Boyd and Trevor Lawrence, etc. Okay, it's the same system. And Chad Morris was a guy who helped get Clemson beyond the Clemsoning era of the early Dabo Sweeney period, where they would have a solid team and they would end up losing to NC State at home in November and then ruining their season. Chad Morris took their offense to a new level, which then he took with him to SMU. Craddock followed him there, had success at SMU, took it to Arkansas, didn't have much success at Arkansas, and then Craddock kind of went back in to the mid-level level, and built himself back up as an offensive coordinator. What you're going to see from the Craddock offense, obviously, is tempo. Obviously, is going to be speed-based and getting the quarterback involved on the move in the run game, RPOs, etc. Another bonus for me is Craddock has playing in Europe, won himself an Italian Super Bowl with the Parma Panthers back in 2010. So, love seeing that. Craddock is going to be a guy who's going to get you're going to hear his name for SEC jobs as well. And obviously, with most of his experience being down south, that would be expected. Again, intriguing offense. Guy who still utilizes tight ends, which is great to see. Throws the ball all over the field, which I like. But again, the only thing that I would be concerned about with him is he has no Midwestern roots, and that would be what I would be wanting to see, maybe a little bit more. Not a big thing, but I don't know if he'd be a cultural fit at Wisconsin. So that brings us to here and to our final list. So let's figure out who this really could be. So again, we're going to use my criteria here. I'm going to try to knock this list down a little bit. So first things first, I want a coach who is a quarterback or at least a wide receiver coach base guy. So Jason Eck, sorry, I'm going to cross you off the list. Okay. 2, I'm going to eliminate the ones that would take so much money or so much convincing that it's not going to happen. So for me, that's Denbrook, and that's Heartline. I'm also going to add Kononicki to that list because, again, I think he's going to get an offensive coordinator job. When we look at the remaining candidates, we're thinking offenses that are built around running the football and building a quarterback that can stretch the field beyond the running game. So, for me, that's going to eliminate Ben Arbuckle and Cade Bell. If you're thinking about we need experience, we need a rock in the quarterback room, then for me, that's going to eliminate Sunseri, Marion, and that leaves us with our top 3. originally of my top candidates that I came up with when I first saw it, this was the top one on my list. So, if I want to put money on it, these are going to be the three names that we're thinking of. Craddock, only because there's been so much smoke about his name the last few days. There must be fire. Somebody maybe is hearing something that the Badgers have reached out. Okay, Tom Herman. One of the reasons why he's no longer at Florida Atlantic is because he was looking into coordinator jobs towards the end, and Gino Guidugli because of his relationship with Luke Fickell. If I want to put things in order, it's probably going to be 1, 2, 3 in terms of likelihood. But we'll see. Obviously, Luke Fickell needs to hit a home run with this hire. He needs to find a guy who can recruit, who can develop, and can develop a game plan that takes the Badgers offense to the level that it should have been this year and beyond. And if he doesn't, well, then the next list we're going to be doing is potential head coach candidates. But until then, it's going to be an intriguing off season. It's going to be an intriguing week or so. Obviously, they just put up the listing for the offensive coordinator job as is required for them to do as a public university. I did send in an application. Sorry, Badge friends, I'm not going to be getting the job. There's a couple key criteria that they're looking for that I don't have. Sorry. So, we should have an answer here within the next week or so. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to try to get this guy on campus and coaching leading into hopefully a bowl game. If not, he's going to be here for National Signing Day, or the early signing period, and in the start of the transfer portal period, so they can start building an offense together with the rest of the coaching staff. So we'll see how it goes. All right, that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.